as a result, you'll be talked into a nice sleep by my warm, dulcet tones of my voice. I'll try to keep it interesting and exciting so that everybody stays engaged. It was It's February of 2017, and I'm sitting in a manager's office, and I'm really, really nervous. And the reason why I'm nervous is because I am there for a job interview, and for the first time in my life, I'm about to tell my full story to the interviewer. And but I wasn't nervous because I wasn't prepared. I was nervous because in my story are some things that are probably going to make an employer pretty nervous as well. But I had been preparing for that moment for about a year. Now, the reason why I was pretty nervous was because the story that I needed to tell the employer was my story of being a homeless meth addict on the streets of Seattle, and of how I had made a comeback and put my life back together in many ways. But I had some things that would make an employer nervous. Before I got sober, I had a 2-year job gap. During my time as a homeless meth addict, I also picked up some criminal history. So I had some criminal convictions that I needed to talk about. So I had some things that an employer might not look upon very favorably, but I was fully prepared to tell the truth about those things because it was my truth, and it still is to this day. And I had that interview and I nailed that interview. But a big chunk of that was because, as I mentioned, I pretty much started preparing for that interview a year before. So when I walked into the rooms of a 12-step program, I literally walked into those rooms off the street. I had literally just been homeless and just been on the street doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. And so I set about this reclamation project because I realized that I needed to remember how to work again and demonstrate that I could be dependable. Now, I'm very lucky. I have a stepmother who is a 25-plus-year veteran of human resources and worked in some really, really big companies, and so was able to guide me in how I could I could pick the best path back to set myself up for success in the workforce. So I did some things that not everybody's prepared to do. Although I had worked in some big companies and had some big jobs, after I got sober, the first job that I took was scrubbing toilets part-time. And honestly, I was happy to have that job because it gave me the opportunity to prove not only to myself, but to an employer that I could be dependable and I could work. And that job led to a better part-time job. Also led to me enrolling in school. I went back to school at a local community college and enrolled in a certificate program. And so I had done some work by the time I ended up sitting in that chair in that manager's office for that job interview. Now, many people many employers hearing me tell my story, naturally they start to think about how comfortable they might be hiring somebody who was a recovering meth addict and had a criminal history. And for many employers, they're not really comfortable doing that. And it's not because they're bad people. A lot of it is fear of the unknown. Many employers, many nonprofits, depending on the nonprofit, they just don't have the experience of actually going through the process and hiring people that are in recovery or people that need second chances. And those are primarily the populations that I deal with in what I do today. So my actual business is I'm a recovery career coach. And what that means is I work exclusively with individuals in recovery on either rebuilding their careers like I had to do, or rescuing their careers, and specifically rescuing their careers if there's someone who is in a company, still has their job, but their career has been impacted by drugs or alcohol in some way. Perhaps they've gone off to rehab and now they're back in the company, trying to figure out how to save their reputations and save their career. So those are the two primary populations of people I work with, and I love it. It's my passion. One of the other things that I do, however, is I also talk to companies about how they can diversify their workforce through background. So obviously we talk a lot about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion these days. Most often people think about that from either a gender or a race standpoint. But diversity of background is a diversity that needs to be paid attention to as well. And one of the best ways to do this is to make a concerted effort to dip into the applicant pool of folks that you might not otherwise talk to because you have some reservations about it. And there's, today what I'm going to share with you are 4 ways to do this. 3 of them external sources from your current company, and 1 of them an internal resource at your company that is going to make it a little bit less intimidating and a much lower risk to hire folks that are in recovery, people that need second chances. So I just want to do a quick survey before I jump in. How many people here in their organization have either total hiring authority or significant input in the hiring process? Okay, and some of you, thank you, Dan, for unblocking your video so I could see that. Okay, all right. So, and Darlene, not me. Thank you, Darlene. That's quite all right. I'm glad you're here anyway. So the again, the thing that when I talk to hiring managers and employers, the thing that they're nervous about is are the prospects of how hiring people with these diverse backgrounds, or unique backgrounds as they're sometimes called, are going to change the culture of their company. And it can change the culture, but for the better. Diversity of thought, diversity of background are good things. So I'm going to give some resources, some free resources, even better, that are some good ways for folks to perhaps think about dipping into this pool of applicants. Now, I am not one of these people who says that you should hire people with unique backgrounds because it's just the warm and fuzzy right thing to do. That is not me. I believe that decisions need to be made because they're good for the bottom line. And hopefully, if they're good for all 3 parts of the bottom line, that triple bottom line we talk about, right? So people, profit, and planet. But I'm wise enough to know that if there's no profit, ultimately the company is going to cease to exist. So there's a couple of really good reasons, just from a business standpoint, to hire people or to be open about looking for people in this kind of applicant pool. So number 1, there's not a lot of competition for the people in this applicant pool. Obviously with the oncoming of the pandemic, unemployment is at a pretty high level right now. But before that, and probably not too long in the future, it's going to be back to where it was kind of difficult for employers to fill some of their positions, especially some of the entry-level positions, because there just weren't people out there or good applicants to do that. In this pool of people that deserve second chances or need an opportunity, there's not a ton of competition because of the apprehension that I talked about a little earlier that many employers have. So there's going to be a good opportunity for you to find some diamonds in the rough. And because of that, there's going to be some folks that you might not otherwise be able to afford that you're going to be able to have a crack at. I will again use myself as an example. So I talked about how I was sitting in that manager's office in 2017 and had prepared myself for that job interview. But what I didn't tell you is that I also, before I got there, before I was a homeless meth addict, I had about 20 years of very good and very strong sales and business development experience. I also have an MBA from the University of Washington. And that small manufacturing company who ultimately ended up hiring me never would have been able to afford a professional like me if, quite frankly, they hadn't gotten me off the scratch and dent pile. Now, that's how I describe myself. I'm not saying that for anyone else that might be in my situation, but it's true. I was back and I was preparing myself for another opportunity. And now they didn't steal me. They didn't, they paid me fairly. I was very fairly compensated for the work that they asked me to do. And I did an excellent job for them. I was with them for 3 years. And that's not just according to me, that's according to them and what they told me when I was on my way out the door, because on the way out the door, they begged me to stay and they told me I could come back anytime I wanted. So there's going to be some diamonds in the rough that are going to be in that pool of applicants. Now, are there going to be some duds? Yeah, but there's also duds that you get when you place an ad on Indeed or if somebody just walks in off the street and applies. So you'll get duds in the general population and in this pool of applicants that I'm talking about as well. But just take a look. That's the thing. Most companies don't even take a look. So just open yourself to the opportunity because ultimately it could be really good for your business. So 3 external resources that are free that as hiring managers or employers that you can employ to dip into this pool of applicants in a relatively low risk way. So the first one is the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or DVR, as it's called here. In Washington State, there's DVR offices everywhere. And this agency's sole mission is to take people and get them work ready. So they take folks who might not necessarily be stable when they bring them in. They put them through a series of assessments, sometimes on-the-job training, testing, things like that, and evaluation, so that in an effort to get them work ready. So typically when folks are done with DVR, they're stable in some areas. So they're usually housing stable. They're typically also food stable. So if this is someone who was in homelessness before and they were housing insecure or food insecure, they have been brought up to a certain level with that. And also, if it's someone that's in recovery, because DVR is about people being stable and ready for work, this person has to be engaged in the recovery process. So DVR is going to have a lot of information about these folks, and quite frankly, information that you as an employer can't ask them about. DVR is going to know a lot about these individuals, and every DVR office has a specific person. It's called a business liaison, and the business liaison's only job is to take those candidates that DVR has deemed as work ready and interface with employers in the community and make connections for jobs. That is absolutely free, and DVR would love to have your phone call. They would love to talk to you, I assure you. So that's a great free resource to use. Something similar to DVR, a second resource, are transitional employment programs. Now, these programs operate in much the same way that DVR does. The difference is where DVR is a government agency, transitional employment programs are typically run by nonprofit organizations. And there's some here locally. I'll name three of them in no particular order. There is Pioneer Human Services, there's Skills Inc., and there's Orion Industries. And all three of those organizations are, they call them social enterprises. So one part of the business is a manufacturing business that makes parts for Boeing and other aerospace companies. And then the other part of the business takes people that have barriers to employment, and these barriers to employment can be a number of things. It can be physical barriers, it can be intellectual barriers, but again, it can also be folks that are leaving behind addiction, homelessness, past criminal history. And they get them work ready. Typically the way they do that is they put them through a 2 to 3 month worker retraining program, which teaches them not only how to work, but it teaches them the soft skills. Now, there's a lot of soft skills that employers say they want, but having worked in the nonprofit world as a job developer, I boil it down to three. Really, there's three soft skills that employers want. They want people to show up for work, they want them to show up for work on time, and they want them to show up for work on time with a good attitude. That's it. So, everything else, yes, there's teamwork. Yes, there is showing up dressed appropriately. Yes, there are, character issues and respect issues, but really it boils down to those three things. And these transitional employment programs, when they're working with individuals, they give them constant coaching, mentoring, evaluation, and feedback. So when they graduate, and just because they complete 2 or 3 months of training doesn't mean they graduate. So I want to be clear about that. When the participants graduate, what that means is they have been stamped and vetted, and it says that they are ready to work. Again, transitional employment programs, love to talk to employers. I had a job in one of these programs as a job developer, and my sole function was to build relationships with businesses in the community so that when our participants graduated, I had places to put them permanently. So it's like a free staffing agency because they don't charge. Transitional employment programs don't charge the employer, they don't charge the participant because they get their funds from the state, basically. They get a lot of grant funds. So again, a great free resource that is very easy for employers to make contact with and set up relationships. The last external resource that I'll talk about are local community colleges. And I will, I talked a little earlier about how I enrolled in a certificate program at a local community college. Local community colleges have a bunch of certificate programs, and depending on the type of business that you're in, it is likely that one close to you has some sort of program that lines up with the type of business you're in. So if you're in manufacturing or nursing or you need administrative assistance or computer programming. They have lots and lots of different programs available. And those programs are pretty good. And for me, one of the greatest things about the program was that it was kind of like having a job. There are attendance requirements. There are on-time attendance requirements. There is an opportunity for the participants in those programs to get, again, to get evaluated and be observed on a regular basis. And ultimately, that job interview that I mentioned that I got, I ended up there because when I was in my certificate program, one of the career counselors there noticed that I was pretty capable and I showed up on time with a good attitude and I always did what was asked of me. And I had already had some of the soft skills, luckily, but they were able to observe that. And the employer I ended up working for happened to have a relationship with the school. So again, they got me, they didn't pay a staffing service. They ended up with me absolutely free simply because they had a relationship with the community college. So excellent, again, excellent opportunity. Community colleges love to talk to businesses in their community. A really easy way to just pick up the phone and make these connections. Now, these connections, all three of these that I mentioned, super easy to set up, but if you're too busy to do it or you don't want to, I'm happy to take your money and I'll do it for you if you want. But again, super easy for you to do. These are, again, completely free and easy ways for you to kind of tap into this pool of applicants. And the last resource I'll mention is actually an internal one. If there is an employee at your organization who is either openly in recovery or you know that they're in recovery because you know their story a little bit and you feel like they might be comfortable with you making a request, if you're open to hiring more people in recovery or people with unique backgrounds, ask that employee if they know somebody. People who are doing well in recovery typically know people that are doing well in recovery, and they would love to connect their friends that are trying to put their lives back together for an opportunity. It's going to obviously do a couple things. It'll give you a chance to show the employee that you trust them, which is invaluable. It'll give you an opportunity to also pay them a referral fee. And again, it's going to let you tap into a pool of applicants that you may not otherwise have. A side note, another thing that you can also do, now this doesn't necessarily give you the chance to get vetted employees or applicants, but if you just want to open up the applicant pool a little bit, in the next ad that you place for a position, all you got to do is add one sentence. Individuals in recovery are strongly encouraged to apply. That's it. So you will give yourself the opportunity to again just talk about talk to a whole different group of people that you might not have otherwise been able to engage with. One of the concerns that employers kind of sometimes say is, well, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with hiring people that have criminal background. Okay, well, I get that. That's valid, right? But I'm not saying that anyone should take their current hiring policy and make a radical change. Just open the door 10%. Now, and opening the door 10% can look like a couple of things. So it can look like if you get a resume that comes across your desk and the person has a job gap, and you would normally automatically discount that resume or put it right in the round file, I would ask you to maybe focus on the person a little bit and not so much on the resume. There's probably a reason why somebody's got a job gap in their resume. It could be a variety of things, but just be open to not automatically disqualifying a candidate because of that. Many people do that, unfortunately. And the other thing is, there's a big distance between having absolutely no employees in your company that have a criminal record, and criminal record can be anything, it could be misdemeanors or felonies, and having, allowing every felon who walks in off the street to work for your company. If you have a policy currently that says that you allow absolutely no criminal history, maybe you may want to consider thinking about letting in some minor offenses, some misdemeanors, or doing it on a case-by-case basis. Again, it's just giving you an opportunity to take a look at more applicants, and you may end up with somebody really, really great that's great for the company and also really appreciates the opportunity. That's pretty much all I got. So I'm certainly happy to take questions. I'm thoroughly convinced that I really, really believe with every fiber of my being that people deserve second chances. And quite honestly, if somebody hadn't given me a second chance, I'm confident that I would not be here talking to you right now. Who knows which way life would have gone or could have gone. But there's a lot of really good people who are in the process of rebuilding themselves and their lives. And employment is a really, really important part of that. Study after study after study shows that when people have purpose, they're more likely to stay engaged in the recovery process. And employment is a huge part of giving people purpose. So thank you guys so much. I'm really honored to have had the opportunity to speak with you today. And I am happy to take questions.
Noah, thank you very much for sharing your story and not just educating us, but exposing a part of your life and putting yourself in a vulnerable position in which to do so. So thank you very much.
Of course.
When I heard you talk to the Rotary, something that you had mentioned that resonated with me was before you found yourself in a position experiencing homelessness and having an addiction that had taken, and I'm looking at Noah's picture and I called you Noah, I'm sorry. Ty, before you put yourself, before you found yourself in a position that you were experiencing homelessness and that the addiction had taken control of your life or was no longer manageable, you had mentioned that you were a pretty functioning and successful addict. And I think to me that resonated because in the world around us, we may be surrounded by people that have a functioning addiction that it's going to take one tipping point that pushes over the edge. And so do you mind touching on that a little bit or sharing that part of your story?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. I was, the time that I think about when that's mentioned is 2007. I'm 35 years old. I am working for a division of GE, and I'm a nationally recognized salesperson. So I'm making a bunch of money, getting a lot of recognition. Professionally, things look really, really good. And I was at the time married, beautiful wife, beautiful stepdaughter in private school, doing really well, smart as a whip. And so if somebody had taken a picture of what was going on, the picture looked really good. It looked great. But unfortunately, life is not a snapshot, it's video. And the video was pretty ugly because the full story of what was happening was that it was very normal for me in the morning, I'd be walking through nice offices, talking to nice people. In the evening at the time, I was actually in school at the University of Washington to get my MBA. So I'd go to school in the evening and be sitting in a classroom with professionals from lots of other big businesses in Seattle. And by midnight, I'd be in a crack house. And that was a pretty normal thing for me. Now, it's not normal. Let me back up. That's not normal. It was a normal part of my existence. And so to the thing that you said about how people can look like they have it together from the outside, but inside there's something happening. That from the outside, that picture I talked about, that was everything I ever said I wanted. What I'd always said was, I want a sales job where I make a bunch of money, I get a bunch of respect, I want a beautiful family, I want a big house, and I can honestly tell you, every single day I wanted to throw myself out a window. I did. And because I was living this double life, and I had no integrity at all. And I'm really surprised that I survived it. And it's only, I know in the Northwest people get weird when people say stuff like this, but it's only through the grace of God that I actually made it through that. And subsequently, even though my life didn't get better, it took me a while. It's also through the grace of God that I survived being on the streets. And when I went to the streets, it wasn't just hey, boom, Ty's on the street and now he wises up and he realizes everything's wrong. No, it took me a year and a half of being on the streets, of going to jail, being committed to a mental institution, going to rehab and failing, a couple of suicide attempts, to finally have enough pain and feel like I was out of options to do something different. So, so it not only talks to that actually talks to a couple things. Not only talks to the number of people who might be dealing with some sort of addiction or some sort of self-doubt or insecurity or anxiety inside. What that also talks to are the number of people that statistics show that on average, every other person that we deal with, so 50% of people, are dealing with some major life event, right? So they have a relative that is really sick, or they themselves are sick. Somebody just died. They just lost a job. They're going through a divorce. They're going through a bankruptcy. There's some sort of hardship that people are enduring that often we don't know about. That's why it always pays to be a compassionate person and to show empathy towards people, because you never know what kind of difference it might make and what someone else is going through. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now. Sorry.
No, it's not a soapbox. It's I found myself in tears, and I didn't use my video during that Rotary meeting because of the story that you told, and how everybody is fighting a battle or a challenge that you're unaware of, and it is equally magnificent to them as the next person's challenge or struggles. So we can't minimize or deflect that. It also we're going to have a whole lot, I would anticipate we're going to have a large number of people that are experiencing some extreme and major challenges as we go through COVID, just functioning day to day. Masks are a barrier for some. I mean, there are different challenges and different magnitudes. So thank you for sharing that part of yourself as well.
Sure. And the last thing that I will throw in when you were talking about the challenges from COVID. So there is likely in the next year to be a huge wave of people who are going to need a lot of help as far as recovery goes. So, right now, Johnny's at home and Johnny's just drinking every day, but it doesn't matter because Johnny doesn't have to go into the office and Johnny isn't in contact with his family that much, right? But once things start to loosen up and people start to interact more, there's going to be a whole host of folks that are suffering significant depression, alcohol, drug issues that are going to come to light. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need help.
Hi, Ty. This is Monique Taylor Swan. I'm with the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force of Renton. We deal with hello there. We deal with multiple people in the situation that you were in, especially in our Black and African community. I'm in the healthcare world, and it just struck me when you told your story. I wanted to think about mental health also, not just giving them the ability to bounce back into the work field, but also does those resources touch on mental health? We're going to need that in Renton.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's part of that. So, I consider what I do, helping people with their careers, as aftercare. So that's what I consider what I do, right? So there is this conception or perception amongst a lot of people that once you go to rehab for 28 days, that everything's great. You're going to come out, life's going to be perfect, problem solved. And that really is just the first step of the journey. And so more of the journey is kind of the pieces that you're talking about, Monique. It is the ongoing care and engagement that individuals need from a mental health standpoint to continue to progress in the right ways. How do we get people to not only, especially in the African American community, this is a big deal because I'm just going to talk plainly here. Black people don't like to talk to counselors. We don't like to go to therapy. It's not our thing. We'd rather go to church than go to therapy. And church is great, but sometimes therapy really helps. So how do we get people to engage in the process of actually talking about their problems and digging into their problems and not trying to avoid their problems is a huge issue as well. And one of the things, again, I can speak from my experience being on the street, I saw a lot of mental health. things where it was very clear that somebody had a mental health issue that they were trying to treat with drugs and alcohol. Really, really obvious. And so once the drugs and the alcohol are removed, those mental health issues still remain and need to be treated in some way. And so I think what you guys are doing is incredibly important.
Thank you, Ty, and you just hit it right on the nose. Right there, we definitely need to encourage and mental health and just make sure that it's mind, body, and soul is what I'm saying. It's mind, body, and soul. And when you're working with someone in multiple different types of aspects of this world, how about that? You come from a different perspective, and you definitely need to have further education and further help with mental health. Hopefully, the programs that you are mentioning now can help some of our business owners, hire some of our people that are out here, and also work with some of the people that are out here on mental health as well. That's why I wanted to bring that up. I work with a lot of patients that are in the situation you're in, and it takes a mind, body, and soul to come out of that. And that's why I wanted to touch base on mental health. Thank you, Ty, for this conversation. It's very helpful.
Thank you, and thank you for speaking up. I appreciate that.
Hey Ty, Noah.
Hey, Noah.
Hey, yeah, I work for John O. Scott, real estate agent, but yeah, I'm not in a position to like hire anybody or anything like that. I'm just an entrepreneur, just doing my own thing. But I just wanted to ask you, like, what are some ways that like somebody like me could, help people that are, dealing with these like issues of addiction and things like that?
Well, so I'm going to say something that you're probably not going to expect. Be kind. So, and I'm not saying that you're not kind, but one of the things that I distinctly remember of being a homeless person on the street was that nobody ever saw me because people, they always look away.
Yeah.
Sometimes just something as simple as saying hello and smiling at someone can make the hugest difference. So that would be the first thing that I would say, right? So it is, I very regularly, and I'm sure it's because of my past situation, I very regularly, but like when I pull up to an off ramp and there's a person standing there with a sign, even if I don't have money, I make sure that I engage them in some way. Hey, how you doing? I wish I had something to give you. I don't, but I just want to check and make sure, let you know that that I see you. I see you. Sometimes it can be something as simple as that. Other things you can do, there are many organizations around Seattle that are doing work with the homeless. I think the place that not because they're any better than any other organization, but the one that jumps to mind is the Union Gospel Mission. They jump to mind. They do a lot of great work with folks in recovery and with the homeless. Homelessness. There's another one, Homelessness Seattle or the Homelessness Project Seattle. I'm trying to think. I can't remember, but volunteering. And again, when people hear volunteering, sometimes they kind of go into a panic. Volunteering can be as little as 4 hours on a Saturday once a month. Just any amount of time and effort that you can give to. Thank you, Darlene. Reach, appreciate it. So any time and effort that you can give to thinking about or contributing to folks that you wouldn't normally think about, because it's really normal. It's not normal for me anymore, but before I was in a situation where I was homeless, it was very normal for me to go through my entire day and not think about the plight of people who were homeless or people who might be struggling with addiction. Really, I mean, why would I? It only makes sense that I wouldn't. So just paying a little bit of attention, and thank everybody so much for putting in the resources here in the chat. I really appreciate it. But again, that's small. The first thing, just make sure people know you see them.
Yeah. Right. All right. Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So if somebody is in recovery and they're, struggling with figuring out, kind of some of those next steps and maybe need some extra help with just kind of getting a plan in order,
Mhm.
For getting a job and some of those other things. How would they connect with you or what your services does?
So at the very top of the chat, and I can drop it in again. At the very top of the chat, I dropped in my contact info, but I will drop it in the chat again right now. And so, and I will also say, I appreciate you asking this question. So I am in the very end stages of getting a career coaching certification. So I've done all the studying, done all the coursework. I now need clients so that I can actually do the field work part of that. So what that means is I'm taking clients pro bono right now. So if there's anyone that you know who is in a position where they're trying to figure out how they're going to put their professional lives back together, would love to work with them. The only thing I ask in return is that they give me some really good feedback about the process, so that if there's some part of the process I need to improve, I can make it better for people that I work with in the future. Outside of that, it's 100% free. So, we can do it by Zoom. We can, that's, I'm sure, the way we would do it these days. But there's a definite path back from where they are now to get to, meaningful work. And I've taken the time to document that path, and I know how to walk people through it. So if you got anybody, please, I'd love to take clients right now.
Okay.
I would love to connect you with Noah Fay. Sorry. Noah Fay is the director. Noah Pratt is with us today. Noah Fay is the director of DESC facilities, and he is overseeing the 10 different shelters, generally 10 different shelters that King County operates on behalf of the city of Seattle and King County, and is currently overseeing the de-intensification facility that is located at the Red Lion. And it is a facility that they have utilized to slow the spread of the COVID virus by taking people from congregate shelters into a hotel environment where they have their own space. But they are utilizing that as a case study, if you will, without a whole lot of resources that they can throw at it for that extra support, of how that housing first approach can work to provide stability and that first step towards taking the next step. And so they have about 230 people there. Some people probably are not candidates for this type of support, but I would anticipate that there are at least a couple in there that could benefit from the services and support that you could provide.
Okay. Yeah, I would love that connection. Thank you.
Hi, Ty. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. And I'm praising the Lord for your
Thank you. I
success
appreciate
and victory. There are a couple programs here in Renton too, the Arise Men's Program. And that program is run by the Catholic Community Services. And they're men that are experiencing homelessness right now, but they're staying at different churches, or I'm not sure exactly where they are right now. My husband used to move the trailer for them every month, but the program is they are supposed to be staying clean and sober, and they're able to have this shelter, the safe shelter place, and food while they're doing that, and they're supposed to be looking for work and getting training. So I think that's another great place that to connect you with.
That would be great. Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Also in the Renton area, there's Reach, and it's and our Renew through the chamber, the Renton Area Nonprofits Unite. I think connecting you with both of those and having you speak at each of those meetings when they resume meeting again would be a good connection for you.
Could you make an introduction for me?
I would.
Okay, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Arlene, FYI, Catholic Community Services have combined their 3 the congregate living shelters from Renton, Federal Way, and Kent, and they are currently housed in a hotel in SeaTac.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard much. My husband hasn't had to move the trailer for the last few months. So, but before it would move monthly to different churches that would host the men, and all their gear, everything that they own was in that trailer. So. thank you again for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
So then what I would do, if anybody, and I don't want to stop anyone from asking Ty any questions, but if nobody has any more questions for Ty right now, and Ty, thank you very much for sharing your time and your story with us. You are welcome to stay or leave your contact information. At this point, what I would provide everybody the opportunity to do is to just kind of go around the room, if you will, and introduce yourself, the business that you're with, what brings you here today, and anything else that you feel pertinent that you would like to announce or pitch out there to your colleagues on this call. And then the person who speaks last can encourage the next person. So for example, since I'm speaking now, I would call on Autumn and say, Autumn, you get to go next. No. Oh, you don't have any audio. Okay, so Autumn is not next. How about Dan? You just made yourself visible and stood up in front of the teacher, so I will call on you next.
Hold on. I did have a question for Ty, but I'll ask you later, Ty. Maybe it's something you can talk about as far as people who are significant in your life that motivated you, or that one thing somebody did to spark you to move forward. So I'm always about that, giving back, those lollipop moments in our lives, that person who touched your life and made it different. So anyway, I'm Dan from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I'm working from home, as you can see. I don't have my green screen today, so yeah, I'm here because I'm really encouraged. I really want to see what I can do to help our businesses become stronger. How I can, from my position with Embry-Riddle, how I can help businesses in Renton become stronger, because that makes our university stronger as well. So I'm gonna jump over and have Noah, who's already spoken, but Noah, you wanna introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Noah Pratt. I'm a real estate agent with the John Buy team with John L. Scott. We're in the Ken North office. I'm a new agent. I've been doing it since January. That's when I got my license. So kind of weird time to start, with everything that's going on. But I've been doing well, and I'm really just here just to, see how I can, help out the community, things like that. Yeah, I researched the chamber and saw that there's a lot of community involvement, and that's something that that our team really values. So yeah, just really want to see how I can help out and see who I can meet and just be in front of as many people as possible. So yeah, glad to be here. And see, I think I'll call on Brigitta.
Good try. My name is Brigitta Jones, and I am with Celebration Foursquare Church. And we have several people within our congregation that, love serving the homeless community. And so we do sometimes do group things within the church, but most of it's individual. We do have a homeless team that goes out, or used to before the COVID thing, go out once a month and do some different things in the community with the homeless people. And we partner a lot with the Reach Meal Coalition and with the Salvation Army, Renton Corps, and feeding the homeless and providing other resources. So, and that's, we do have a big heart for the homeless. And my specific reason for being here today is because I have a son who is in recovery. He was on the streets for several years, actually, went into recovery last November and has been struggling to, find work and stay on his feet. he's continuing to be committed to the recovery, so we're really excited about that. But I think he just kind of needs a, something. I think he's just feeling extremely down right now with a lot of, different jobs that he's tried to get. He's been hired, and then his background check comes back and they let him go. I don't know why anybody would hire somebody before the background check comes back. Doesn't make any sense to me, but that has happened a couple of times. And then he does not have a vehicle, so transportation issues have made it difficult for him also to get a job. So anyway, that was my main reason for coming on today. And this has been very informative and very appreciated. I forgot, I was supposed to name something. Oh, back to you now that you are unmuted.
Still can't hear
Still
you.
can't hear you, Autumn.
Yeah.
Autumn, you can do sign language.
Ah,
I can't read it, but somebody else can interpret it.
you could type in the chat.
That would probably be it.
So I'll share a little bit. Autumn is with Columbia Bank, and she is a representative, not just for our business community as a banker, but she is also active with RANU, which is our Renton Area Nonprofit Unite. We work with about 80 paid nonprofits, and I say paid member nonprofits, and about 150 unpaid nonprofits cycle through recognizing the benefits of the networking opportunities for both our paid and unpaid members in the nonprofit world. And she is active as a board member with New Horizons School. Oh, she is active with New Horizons School in supporting their processes and the work that they do within the community. She is also a fantastic resource for the financial literacy program that they have at Columbia Bank that is interested in getting out and teaching that financial literacy program to individuals and organizations. You are welcome. And exercising my position and platform, I will then call on Charlie Schmidt. If I don't see any movement from Charles. How about Monique? We've got no movement there. There we go.
Sorry. Hey, everybody. I'm a caregiver. I've been a caregiver for over 15 years. I serve our seniors in our community of Renton and other places, as well as Seattle. I'm also an executive board member of SEIU 775 Healthcare Northwest. I also serve as the second vice president of AFRAM of Washington Caucus. And I also sit with the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force on inclusion of Renton and serving a body of loads of different nationalities in our community. First and foremost, what brought me here is the subject, because in my world, I'm dealing with that every day. And they're looking for ways on how to change their life, how to find resources that are clear pathways to get there. And a lot of times, I'm communicating with each and every other caregiver, because that's how we can do it, to find out resources that are in our community, because we're really isolated from the world. So we connect with the hospitals, the nurses, the doctors, and that's how we kind of do things. But being in this conversation today, let me know that Renton is reaching out to many more. And our inclusion task force is trying to find places of where we can go to also give and enlighten and, encourage them to do something better and strive for something better, their health, make sure their health is better. So I, serve the community in that way. I'm a mother of 5. I have a husband. just had a grandbaby. I'm so proud because, you know, the kids are getting growing. You know, they're on their way out the door. But, you know, just knowing the fact that this conversation was broad enough to reach out to us, I felt like I needed to be on this call to find out what more can we do and how can we combine healthcare with this situation that is going on with our drug world. Because all of us are in it and we all have a family member that is experiencing it. My mom did, and I was right there the whole way from the beginning to the end. And it's a long road. So also educating our children that are going through this, not just the family member, not just the actual individual, but actually bringing in a group of a unity to actually get them back on board. So I just wanted to call and put a little bit of input and see what I can bring back to my board and how we can make changes better.
Thanks so much for being here, Monique, and for everything that you're doing. I'll put my email address in the chat if you don't have it already. And I would love to connect you with the work that you're doing with the seniors. There is a providers resource group that meets once a month that Lilia Anderson from Merrill Gardens facilitates. And it is intended as a resource for groups or individuals that work predominantly with seniors or provide services for seniors. That can go from real estate agents to healthcare providers to moving companies. And if you are at all interested, I think they'll be resuming meetings in some fashion maybe next month. And so I would put those resources in front of you to utilize as you choose.
Thank you. That would be so helpful. And I'm actually Snapchatting the conversation so I can keep my links.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Charlie, you've joined us again. Would you like to share who you are, the company you're with, and what brought you here today?
Okay. First, I apologize. I had to step out a second to take a phone call, but I'm Charlie Schmidt. I'm a small business owner, and I represent a company called Legal Shield. We provide affordable legal for individuals, families, and small businesses. And I joined the call today because I thought the topic was interesting. And although I'm not directly dealing with any personal or work situations with recovery, I think the general principles that Ty represented today and all of you in this group talked about can be applied to helping all of our neighbors and friends as the need will increase as we continue to go through COVID. Kindness and compassion, and just trying to be a connection to help people that are in need, whether they're dealing with recovery from what was the topic of Ty's presentation, or trying to recover with our multi-task catastrophes going on right now. So it's a lot of good learning lessons, and hearing success stories and testimonials just keeps that positive energy flowing. And that's why I tune into conferences like this. So thanks, Ty, and thanks everyone for your feedback.
Charlie, thank you. Charlie is one of the Renton Chamber's most active ambassadors as well, and out there on behalf of the Chamber. And there are few and far service projects that you don't see Charlie out at, if not perfect attendance at all of our Chamber events and functions. So thank you for all that you do.
Diane, can I jump in and take about 2.5 minutes and answer that question that Dan had for me?
Oh, please, yes.
Like,
please
what
do.
was okay, so there were lots of things that got me thinking about getting sober, but I'm going to tell you a story that's going to sound completely insane to you, but I assure you it's 100% true, and it happened to me. Summer of 2015, I am in a hotel room in downtown Seattle, and this feeling of, I'm actually feeling pretty relaxed and calm. And the reason why is because I've officially made the decision that I'm going to kill myself. And my entire plan is downtown Seattle, Saturday night, beautiful summer night. I decided that I was going to walk downstairs and smoke a cigarette and then walk myself into traffic and get hit by a car or a truck. Had completely made my mind up. This was happening. So I go down to the sidewalk. I've got 2 cigarettes in my pack. I take out my second to last cigarette. I start smoking, and I'm about halfway through it, and this stranger approaches me. And I figured, because on the street when you're homeless, you never smoke a pack of cigarettes alone. So I figured he was going to ask me for a cigarette, but instead, what he did was he asked me for help. And he said that he's an alcoholic. He'd been kicked out of his house by his wife, hadn't eaten for a couple of days. And could I help him out with some food? Now, I had no money, but I had a food card, my food stamp card. So I said, sure, let's start walking. And so we're walking along, and he's trying to engage me in conversation. And, hey, what's your name? I'm like, doesn't matter. Where do you live? I don't live anywhere, but that doesn't matter anymore. I'm tired. And he starts to get a sense that there's something, obviously there's something happening with me. And out of the blue, he says, God has a plan for you, right? Which is odd, because I had not, I'm up until that point, I'm not, not a religious person at all. So I just said, doesn't matter what the plan is. I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. So we get to the 7-Eleven that's a couple blocks away. I go in, I get him whatever food I can get him with my food card, and he's still trying to talk to me, but I'm like, okay, no, I gotta go, because I still had every plan in the world to go walk into traffic. And so the few minutes before, when he had walked up to me, it's a summer night in Seattle. It's like midnight, Saturday night, ton of cars on the street, people everywhere. I walk out to the sidewalk to walk myself into traffic, and there's no cars. And I don't mean like there's just a couple of cars or traffic's moving along. There's literally no cars, and there's no people on the street, which strikes me as really odd. So I walk up to the cross street, and I look both ways, and there's no cars, and there's no people on the street. So I uttered an expletive, like, you got to be kidding me. And I sat down on the sidewalk, and I smoked my last cigarette, and literally said to myself, I guess tonight is not the night that I die. Now, it would be a great story if the next day I got sober and everything, the clouds parted and birds started singing, but I'm a little more stubborn than that. So it took me a little while longer, but what that did for me was it let me know, it showed me for the first time that there was something bigger happening. And I started to notice all this really weird stuff started to happen. And I can't go into it now, but all these, kind of signs, or God shots, as people call them, started to happen in my life until, I just kind of couldn't ignore it anymore. So that's it.
I think I'm the last person to go. And I just thank you, Ty, for sharing that testimony. That's awesome. I started tearing up. I was trying to hide it behind my glasses. That was awesome. I love hearing testimonies like that. So I'm Darlene Larson. I attend Celebration Foursquare Church with Brigitte and do some stuff there. And I work at the Renton Chamber of Commerce with Diane, and I just love my job. And I just love being in that position of being able to connect people here and there. And I met Ty, and I know a couple people. I'm like, we need to have you meet this person, and I want to have you come and speak here. And so I'm going to help keep your schedule busy a little bit.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you guys for letting me be here today. I really appreciate it.
So we're generally scheduled, we book these out for about an hour and a half to provide program and networking opportunity. If anybody has anything to bring forward, by all means, the floor is yours. Otherwise, I do give a huge amount of thanks to Ty and sharing your story and doing what you're doing and your efforts to make this world a better place. You are appreciated. And
thank you. I appreciate that.
I will throw that out to anybody else here, and then, but I also, being mindful and respectful of people's time, I know how nice it is to get time back in your day too. So don't want to encourage to hold captive for the next 28 minutes, but.
And
Diane,
one
the
last thing.
providers breakfast group does meet on Zoom.
It is meeting on Zoom.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what I did is I put the Lilia's information in a message to Monique so she can contact Lilia direct on that one. Thanks, Charlie.
And I have I've taken the time to go to LinkedIn for those of you that I could find and have sent you connection requests. If for the folks that I couldn't find, namely Brigida and Darlene, if you're on LinkedIn, if you could send me a connection request, that'd be great. Otherwise, just shoot me an email and we can communicate from there.
All right, then and I also want to take just a moment of privilege to say thank you to Noah Pratt for joining us. Noah is one of our newest members of the Renton Chamber, and we are excited that he has jumped in with both feet into our opportunities for networking that we have. And every time I hear from him, he talks about community. So you couldn't be speaking anything more loudly to my soul, Noah. You've entered the right realm. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys.
All right, with that, I will we'll call it a day and give everybody your time back. And thank you very much for being here, being a part of the chamber, being part of the community, and everything that you're doing in your ways, like I said to Ty, to make the world a better place.
Bye.